You know, this particular hunt that we're doing, we've got fairly early season, fairly warm weather conditions. The deer are still kind of, some of them are buddy-buddy, some of them are starting to fight, especially the younger deer. You're not seeing a lot of rubs, you're not seeing a lot of scrapes, you're seeing deer really roaming and covering a lot of ground. You know, as I start looking at our hunting setup here as we're kicking this one off, we're gonna go in, climb up in 2 tripods, really high tripods, especially from the camera standpoint. He's probably 26, 27 feet up. I'm probably gonna be about 18. We're buried in some big oaks. Out in front of me along this top of this ridge, which is, you know, a great place for deer to be this time of the year, you've got kind of an old meadow down one side. The little 2-track road kind of makes a turn right there. The same basic road we kind of came in on. Off to the right, you know, you've got a pretty good thicket, and the deer just should meander in and out through this entire area. You know, as you sit in this stand here, I mean, it's pretty apparent there's a lot of young deer kind of moving in through here. We saw some little 3 points and 4 points, some all 6 point, and they're all just kind of meandering around. We even had a couple of them jostling off to the side, fighting a little bit. Saw one deer that was kind of tipped in out there, nice 10 point, but he just didn't, I just felt like he was a younger deer, and I know this particular property has some more mature deer on it. I've got some experience hunting it, and I just thought, you know, hey, I'm gonna wait. And we actually really climbed down out of the stand pretty early that day. It was time for a change. Any good hunt like that's a lot of fun, where you get a chance to see a lot of deer. Sometimes you gamble and your decisions are wrong. That was definitely one of them, on banking on better cloud cover so we could sit here. It's, without question, a perfect evening stand. Struggles in the morning, so strategy wise, sometimes you roll the dice, sometimes you guess wrong. That was definitely one of them. You know, we're able to get into that stand without messing a lot of stuff up. Parking this Wolverine a pretty good ways away, drove in here way early, and then, you know, hike into it, always keeping the wind in our face. So that part of it I was really excited about. I think we did perfect. But once that sun got up, 45 minutes to an hour in there, you know, the cloud cover didn't roll in like they were predicted, and we pretty much had to cut this hunt short way too early. So we'll move on down, get something to eat, make a new plan.
Well, coming up, we'll get back on the hunt with Wade. But first, we'll take a look at the Yamaha Wolverine X4, a go-anywhere side-by-side with room for 4. It's the first week of October, and temperatures are still a bit warm. With the challenging conditions, Wade and Jeff are having to cover some ground.
All right, well, that's a nice little ride out. Got an afternoon hunt getting ready to go on right now. You know, we set out yesterday afternoon, and this morning, those tripods, great hunts, a lot of deer. Just didn't see what we've been seeing on the scouting camera right there. Decided to go to the opposite end of a ridge here, pretty good ways away. We've got thunderstorms building off in the distance. We've got a pretty good chance for some storms this evening, kind of rolling in the area. We're gonna set up in a pop-up tonight, kind of looking off into some brush and some flats, see what the deer are gonna troll through. This is that time of the year when those deer, I mean, they're doing a lot of different things, I always think, this time of the year. You've got the bachelor groups breaking up. You've got some deer starting to fight. You've got some deer that don't even like to fight, don't want to be a part of that, and they'll kind of move off in their own deal. You've got other deer feeding on acorns. I mean, a lot of people get confused this time of the year when they're deer hunting, and they're like, man, it's a lull, they're not moving. They're somewhere. You've just got to go find them. You know, hunting out of a pop-up is something we do a lot of. It's just kind of it's a great way to go in and build a blind. I'm a huge believer in, you know, the back windows closed, brush around it, get something that gives it some three-dimensional look. This particular location that we're gonna set up on, huge field behind us. We're kind of just off the edge of the field, looking out to where the deer would be coming out of a bedding area, coming off of a ridge, working their way up into the big field behind us. I mean, it's pretty. It's just looks like a great day to be going deer hunting. Well, we got in here. We're all set up right now. Wind couldn't be any better. What wind there is really coming into that valley right in It's so amazing to be sitting in a stand and watch the sun start to go down the shadows in the early season hunts. If you're in an area that's got deer, what happens, the life that comes together. Now granted, we've got an area that's right here that we're hunting. There's a lot of deer in this county, and there's just, I mean, the density is huge. And behind us is a place where these deer want to go. When you're cruising along through here, you can see it's perfect edge habitat. Just off of that edge habitat in that valley, with the way the wind's, you know, blowing and the way everything is set up. There's an old box blind off in the distance where you just know the stories from guys killing big deer off of it. We didn't feel like it was the perfect angle for us, which is why we put this pop-up down there. I mean, and it's just the anticipation, the excitement level is building. I mean, we've got some deer coming into our right. We've got some more coming in out in front of us, and they're just kind of doing their thing. They're just kind of milling around, passing around, a little bit of posture and everything. I was pretty much on pins and needles the whole evening as the sun kept setting. I mean, I'm scanning left, I'm scanning right. I've got those binoculars working overtime, just thinking this is a place that's got some good ones, so I'm trying to be patient.
Well, we're on a hunt in Central Texas with Wade Middleton. Now, 3 days ago, Wade started high in a tree stand, but quickly switched things up and made a move to a pop-up blind situated on the edge of a bedding area overlooking a nice field. The move was a good choice. Wade senses the potential.
You know, we're into this hunt, pretty committed into it, seeing a lot of deer, understanding in our mind, knowing the history of what goes on this time of the year in the general area that we're hunting, what those deer do. It's a matter of time. You've got to put in the time in this type of a situation to where you're gonna get one, and you've just got to let all that stuff pass. And we got in the blind super early, knowing that it was gonna be a long time before we'd be able to see daylight out there, but that's what we felt like we needed to do. If we could get in there in the cover of darkness and we could get set up pretty quiet, I think the odds are gonna be in our favor. It didn't take long when we could start to see a few shapes out there just kind of milling around. Same, somewhat similar locations as we saw the day before. Some deer on the right, some deer on the left, some deer way off in the valley, some deer kind of going up on the hill, some deer we couldn't identify, just shapes. As you know, our binoculars were strong enough in gathering light in those situations that we could tell it was a good deer, but not a whole lot else you could do. I never just shoot to shoot. I want to make sure and study the deer, make sure it's what I'm looking for. But as the light began to get better and better, we saw a couple of bucks out there off in the distance that were getting us pretty jazzed up. We're sitting there, and there's some real thick stuff right in front of us that kind of goes off to the left. And if you watch deer movement, a lot of times you can pick up on something's either making them nervous or something's coming. And we're seeing some deer kind of look off in the brush, and this deer kind of steps through this hole, he turns out, he kind of gets around out there. I throw the binoculars up first because that's just kind of what I do. I'm a shooter, no doubt about it. That's a shooter. It's a big 8-point that we've got some photos of. I mean, and I was pretty confident right away when I saw it that was him. I mean, you look like you could put your fist barely between his main beams. I mean, they were touching, and he was tall. And the heartbeat gets picking up, and I check him. I'm like, I reach for the gun. I'm starting to get in position, and you know, he's just kind of milling around out there. And just about the time I get that gun up, I don't know what happens. Whatever reason, you know, sometimes birds will fly over, sometimes another deer will snort at them. I mean, you don't know. This deer bolts and he just takes off and he goes around. That's part of it. I mean, you could be on him and the hammer cocked on, in this case, because I'm shooting the TC Encore, and he just goes. And he just takes off and shoots around, but about 5 minutes later, he's coming in front of me. The cool thing about that deer there, years and years ago, I hunted for a deer we called Spooky up there. And I mean, that deer looks so similar to that deer. You talk about genetics and how genetics carry through. I mean, there's a very similar look to that deer. I never got Spooky. I mean, he outsmarted me, but that buck right there, when I first time I saw him and I thought, man, that deer looks so similar, and I fell in love with him. Big brow tines, curves in. I mean, what a great deer.
I talk about preparation, I talk about practicing, visualizing what's going on in deer hunting, getting all your stuff set up, knowing the distances in front of you, knowing how to move to get into a shot. And this is one of those cases. 5 minutes ago, I was gonna shoot this deer out of the left window of this pop-up. Now he's in front of me. Pick up the bog pog, set it over, stick the gun out the window. I mean, I practiced that move before. I practiced it the day before. I mean, you know, it was easy and it was seamless. The shot wasn't really that long. Could have shot it with freehand out there, but when you've got the perfect rest in there, why take that chance? Go ahead and set yourself up. The deer kind of spins around out there, he kind of postures, looks at a doe, goes broadside, take the shot. You're good. The thing about hunting is you never know what potentially could happen. I'm shooting a TC Encore Pro Hunter in 308. I know what that gun does. I mean, I've shot it enough. I've run a lot of rounds through it. That's what I talk about in that practice, getting ready. And I mean, I hammered that deer. And that deer goes down, and I'm like, smoked him. This deer hits the ground, spins around, look, he's done. Jumps up, exit, stage right. That happens in hunting. I'm befuddled how this deer got up after the shot, and especially when I look at the placement after the fact. But the deer ends up, you know, running off to the right. And I mean, my eyes are big, and I'm thinking, man, I made a perfect shot. I know I made a perfect shot, I know it. But he's ran off.
Hey, if you like to hunt, then check out the Yamaha Whitetail Diaries YouTube channel. The best whitetail hunting from across the nation, anywhere, anytime. Now, after 3 days of hard hunting, Wade finally got it done when a beautiful, mature 8-point wandered into range.
Smoke that deer right there. That's TC Encore in action right there. I knew that was a dead deer after we hit him, but he's right over here. He got up, ran on adrenaline about 30 more yards, and he is piled up. We've got a lot of venison and some great antlers. I tell you, to me, this is a cool story behind this deer, because he's got to have some of the genetics of Old Spooky in him, a similar look, similar style, big mature deer. I mean, all the way around. Oh, that's what I'm talking about. Look at the 2s and 3s on that deer there. That's just a cool deer. I mean, you can barely, look at that, you can't put your fist in between his tines the way they touch right there on his main beam. There's a cool character on his brow tines. This one here goes up. It's considerably longer, but this one here actually goes up and hooks back almost like a fish hook. I mean, his tines are almost touching. Thank you, sir. You are gonna fill the freezer with a lot of good venison, and you're gonna make something we'll be able to put on the wall to tell some stories about it. It never gets old.
Well, that'll do it for another hunt. We'll see you again next week when we get back in the field for another episode of the Yamaha Whitetail Diaries.